Welcome back to the Fantasy Draft Room. And unfortunately, today, I hate to say unfortunately, but unfortunately, today, we are going to be covering the Indianapolis Colts for the 2025 fantasy projections, or at least the offensive projections for the Indianapolis Colts for 2025. And I've got to say, this is one of the worst times I've had. It's not the hardest time I've had trying to project out a team, but it was just depressing kind of the entire way through. So we can get into this one. We'll do it with the offensive historicals. And if you've watched the Houston Texans video before this one, we're going to kind of do the same thing with this team. We've had 2 years now with Anthony Richardson and a slew of other quarterbacks. But this is Shane Steichen's team for the last 2 years. We do have the 2021 and the 2022 season of Shane Steichen as well, whenever he was the offensive coordinator for the Eagles. So kind of similar to the last video where we took the 23 and 24 seasons for the Houston Texans and the Los Angeles Rams. We're going to take the last 4 years of Shane Steichen, both with the Eagles and with the Colts, with a little bit of a twist in there. But we can get right into that one. I don't want to make this one too depressing before we even get into the stats. But I'll tell you in front, it's not great for anyone. So we're going to look at the Indianapolis Colts. I've got the 23 and 24 seasons of Shane Steichen and Jim Bob Cooter as OC. Both of those are back. And then I'm looking at the Eagles 21 and 22 seasons when the offensive coordinator was Shane Steichen. Looking at the big six numbers, whenever we're looking at all four of those seasons combined, we're going to be looking at 541 passing attempts. And this is a 4-year average from all four of those years. 541 passing attempts, 506 rushes, 404 RB rushes, 70 RB targets, 349 wide receiver targets, and 96 tight end targets. So that's where we're going to be taking a lot of these numbers from to try to build this out. We're also going to be looking at, unfortunately with this one, we have probably a QB rotation that's projected to happen throughout the year. I currently have it as Anthony Richardson with 8 games, Daniel Jones with 9. This could change as we move forward through the offseason. We have Anthony Richardson shoulder questions as well. If one of them is named the starter, do they even play for the full season? I'm not projecting that to happen. I think these two might interchange with each other multiple times throughout the year, even if that's possible. So I've got them just kind of averaged out here so that they can split the 17-game season of 8 games and 9 games. That way we can try to get a little bit of a projection. But I'll tell you right now, either one you take, it doesn't matter if they played a full 17. The offense is still gross. Even if the passing numbers will obviously go down off of historicals if it's Anthony Richardson, it ain't much better if it's Daniel Jones either. So we can get into it though. We'll start off with the Anthony Richardson. I'll say right now, I guess I have him first. We'll just guesstimate and say that he wins the starting job for the first 8 weeks, and then Daniel Jones takes the next 9 games to close out the season. It probably won't happen exactly like that, but whatever the case is, 8 and 9 games is currently how I have it listed out, because I do think it's such a 50-50 coin toss up in the air. Anthony Richardson, 217 passing attempts on 8 games. If we look back at the last 2 years, 84 attempts in 4 games, even though he was injured in some of those, and then 264 attempts in 11 games last year. We're doing the average and then merging that with the total passing attempts for the offense, putting it to an 8-game sample size, or putting it out to an 8-game projection, 217 passing attempts for those 8 games. And this is where Anthony Richardson has been legitimately one of the worst quarterbacks in NFL history. Completion percentage, his rookie year was 59.5%. And last year, I believe it is within a certain range of how many passing attempts you've completed or attempted in a year. 264 passing attempts and 47.7 completion percentage. I believe it is an NFL record of not being good. I have it jumping back up. Hopefully we can get a little bit more out of Anthony Richardson as a passer. 57.14. It is still a terrible, terrible number. But it's closer to his rookie year. It's still not even above 60%. It's still an absolutely brutal number. But you have to get something closer back to a 60% line, hopefully, for this offense to even function. That's going to give him the 124 completions in those 8 games. Looking at his yards per attempt and his yards per completion, this is where Anthony Richardson actually excels. Yards per attempt has been at 5.4 and 5.8. That number, the yards per attempt has been at 6.9 and 6.9. Nice. The last 2 years, repeating that number, we jumped that up to a 7.06. The yards per completion for Anthony Richardson, a league leading 14.4 yards per completion last year, jumping up from an 11.5. I mean, this dude was just throwing up 50-50 jump balls and only completing them at a 47% rate last year. That's all that he did. I've had that number coming down to a 12.36. I don't know if you'll get the full Anthony Richardson experience out of him, but I do bring it down a little bit for 1,533 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. If you're looking at the interception and touchdown rate, he's dropped his touchdown rate from 3.6 to 3.0. He had 8 touchdowns passing in 11 games last year, 3 in 4 games in his rookie year. Interception rate jumped all the way up to a 4.5%, which is brutal as well. 12 interceptions on 11 games last year. You just can't operate football that way. So I have him at 8 and 5 here for the 8 games that he plays. Where he does offer some fantasy value, though, is in that rushing profile floor. So we'll look at that again. 25 rushing attempts in 4 games in his rookie year, 86 rushing attempts in 11 games in the second year. I have that number coming in for 8 games and 52 rushing attempts for 2025. That's going to be at a 5.60 yards per attempt rate. Yards per attempt rate has been at 5.8 and 5.4. So we middle those 2 numbers at 5.6. We get to 291 yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. Even though he's only playing 8 games, he's had 4 and 6 in the last 2 years. So putting him at 4. Total overall on the year, position rank 13. I want to say off the top of my head that this projection rank, if he was to play at a points per game rank, would put him, actually, let's just look that one up as we're here. We can switch that one over. I'm already on the quarterbacks. So for Anthony Richardson, that puts him in as the quarterback 17 in terms of points per game. So it's still not even that great, even if you do get the points per game numbers out of Anthony Richardson. He's in here at 33 overall, but if you move the numbers around, it'd be 17. So not great for Anthony Richardson. We'll see if it's any better for Daniel Jones. Don't believe that it will be too much, but we can still look at it. 9 games, 274 passing attempts. Daniel Jones, over the last couple of years, whenever we're looking at passing attempts, 341 in 10 games, 160 in 6 games, and 472 in 16 games. If you break down those passing attempts per game numbers, and then you put that out to about a 9-game pace, and then again, looking for how many passing attempts we want to throw in this offense, the last year, we had 513 passing attempts in 2024. We're now coming in at 491 whenever you're putting these two together. So that's where we're really trying to find this number at 274 passing attempts for Daniel Jones. You could put a little bit more to this offense in passing attempts. I know I have it extremely low right now, and we're on the wrong screen. Let me get back over to the right one for y'all. But 274 passing attempts for Daniel Jones, 961 plays, though, kind of makes sense for the offense. It's a tough one. It's a tough one to get through, but we're going to keep going. So 274 passing attempts, 64.6% completion percentage. If we're looking at Daniel Jones, career average on completion percentage has been at 64.1. He's dropped from 2 years ago or 3 years ago. He's been at 67, and then dropped to 63 in 2024. So I have him coming in here at a 64.6 completion percentage for 177 completions. Yards per attempt has been I have him coming in here at 6.53. Those numbers have been at 6.8, 5.7, 6.1. So kind of middling all of those. You get a 6.3 yards per attempt, 10.11 yards per completion. Yards per completion, he's averaged career average at 10.1. He's been really low the last 2 years, but probably a lot of that is like a Wan'Dale Robinson type that's been bringing that down. Whenever you have 140 targets and like an 8-yard ADOT or 8 yards per reception, not even an ADOT, it's probably going to affect you a little bit. But all those numbers bring him to 1,789 yards, 10 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Again, looking at those touchdown rates and interception rates for the two of them, this is where the numbers come out to. 61 total rushes for Daniel Jones. Interesting that it just in 9 games, I mean, Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson have been running the ball almost at an equal rate to each other. So they actually come out, interestingly enough, with a 4.77 yards per attempt historically over the last couple of years that I've gotten from Daniel Jones. 291 yards for both of them on the ground and 2 touchdowns for Daniel Jones. Quarterback 31 overall for Daniel Jones. It's enough with the quarterbacks. I don't want to talk about them anymore. But if you can imagine that I have this passing attack only going for 33, 22, and 18 touchdowns, you're not going to have anything good coming out of the wide receiver core for this team either. And we're going to get into the gross range of it. We're going to get into one good thing that this offense does offer, though, and that is Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor last year, 303 attempts on only 14 games, 169 in 10, and 192 in 11 over the past 3 years. We've got that number coming in at 297 total carries. If we're looking at that RB rush share, last year they were at 391. The year before that with Shane Steichen in Indy, they were at 416. So I've got that number coming in at 352 total rushes for the RBs. 290. I saw this is even dropping down further as you have Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, because you've had over the past couple of years more passing attempt guys. You've had like the Gardner Minshew's and the Joe Flacco's be in here. So your total number of running back carries could potentially go down as you get more rushes from the quarterbacks over the course of all 17 games, potentially, if these two even do. And then we get Riley Leonard behind that. Jonathan Taylor, though, 297 total rushes, still commanding a large workload of the majority of this backfield as he has for every time he's been healthy and on the field. 4.59 yards per attempt. Last 3 years for that number has been at 4.5, 4.4, 4.7. So we get to 4.59, 13, 64 on the ground, and 10 total touchdowns. He's been at a 10 total, or his last year was at 11 total touchdowns. He dropped a little bit below that for the last 2 years, but again, not playing 17 games, not even playing 17 games in any of the years before this. So we could bump him down to a little bit lower, but with a guy like Jonathan Taylor, I don't really want to do that at this point yet. 10 total touchdowns. 34 targets. We know that this offense doesn't really pass the ball through the air. Like we said, only 70 targets to the running backs, and this is probably only going to get worse. I have them at probably one of the lowest running back target rates in the league at only 59 total targets. But again, you have Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. They've never historically done that, and they've already been low. 34 targets for Jonathan Taylor. If we're looking back at those numbers, he's capped out at 51. He's had 39 and 40 in his first 3 years in the league, 23 and 31 in the last 2 years as well. So 34 here, he's probably just around that number guy. 70.59 catch percentage for Jonathan Taylor. Looking at that number, has been at a career average of 76.6. So we drop that down a little bit lower and we get to 24 total receptions, 8.04 yards per reception. That number's been at 8.1 and 7.6 the last 2 years. So getting a little bit closer to that higher number, 8.04 gives him 193 and 1 total touchdown for RB10 overall on the year for projections for Jonathan Taylor at a 17-game pace. That's the only good player on this offense. It's the only one I really want. Best ball and everything is different, but if you're going out and targeting something, it's the only one I want. We can get into the wide receivers. I guess I can talk about a little bit. You have DJ Giddens, Khalil Herbert. They're both complimentary guys as long as Jonathan Taylor is healthy. I'll give it to DJ Giddens. I liked him a little bit more pre-process than we've seen of Khalil Herbert being bounced around over the last couple of years in the league. Like him too, but as long as Jonathan Taylor is healthy, this offense is going to run through him at the running back room. Michael Pittman and Josh Downs. This is a pretty highly contentious point in the dynasty streets, fantasy football redraft streets. Of Josh Downs is the absolute loved guy, and Michael Pittman is faded into dust, and Josh Downs is the only good piece on this offense. But again, it doesn't matter when you're only throwing for 3,300 yards on the air. Doesn't matter. So Michael Pittman, we'll get into him, though. 111 targets last year in 16 games, 156 in 2023 in 16 games, and 141 in 16 games in 2022. I'm at 17 games, 114 targets for this offense. And we'll see, the tight end share is going to change good. Not a drastic amount. But again, just the total number of passing attempts is really hindering this team here. So 114 attempts for Michael Pittman. You just have to start cutting everything down to make this work with the quarterback numbers that we're getting. 114 targets for Michael Pittman at a 64.04 catch percentage. Career average there, he's been at a 67.7, but dropped down last year when Anthony Richardson was playing more to a 62.2%. Have the number coming in here at 64.4 for 73 catches. 784 yards comes from a 10.74 yards per reception for Michael Pittman. Yards per reception for him has been at 9.3, 10.6, and 11.7 the last 3 years. Feels like it's very low for a guy who you think could operate more down the field, and especially playing with Anthony Richardson at some points and Joe Flacco at some points for the last couple of years. Figure this would be higher, but it really just all goes to Alec Pierce if it's going downfield, it seems. So it's 10.74, 784 yards, and 5 touchdowns to the air for wide receiver 41 on the year in projections. Josh Downs, on the other hand, everybody's favorite, that they want him to excel to a role that he hasn't seen before. 107 targets in 14 games last year, 98 targets in 17 games in his rookie year. He's a good wide receiver, but again, we're slashing wide receiver targets everywhere. And he put up, what was the number again? 107 in 14 games last year. Yes, you would have a higher pace if you played a full 17. But again, you have to cut it back down because the quarterback play, 115 targets is where we came out at for Josh Downs. 66.09 catch percentage for him. Last 2 years has been at 69.4 and 67.3. You have more plays from Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. The reception percentage goes down. 76 catches for him, 832 yards on a 10.95 yards per reception. That yards per reception number has been at 11.3 and at 11.2. So you could bump it up a little bit, but it's not too far drastically below what he's put up in the past. 832 yards and 3 touchdowns for Josh Downs. He's put up 2 and 5 in the last 2 years. But again, you only have 18 touchdowns through the air. You got to cut numbers somewhere. Alec Pierce, one of the most interesting wide receivers, I think, in the league. 78 targets, 65 targets, and 69 targets. Nice in his first 3 years in the league. He is just a true throw the ball down the field and see what you get type of wide receiver. So I have him in here at 56 total targets, a 51.79 catch percentage. That number's been is exactly at his career average of 51.9%, sometimes of 51.79%. Sorry. But sometimes the numbers just work out a little bit right. That's real close. 29 catches for a 15.1 yards per reception. Last year, he led the league in yards per reception at 22.3 yards per reception on 37 catches for 824 yards. Is just a stupid number. I know there's a tweet that I have out there somewhere about how dumb that yards per reception number is. I don't have it on me right now, but it is historical. It's a historically outlier number that has ever happened in the NFL. So if we're going on that, I drop it down. We can't stay at 22. Natural regression tells you to bring it back down. 15.1 yards per reception at 438 and 3 touchdowns. Last year, that number was all the way up at 7. So we're cutting that even below half for wide receiver 84. You throw in a little bit of Idinaapolis Mitchell. I know they want him to excel. It doesn't sound like it's going well in this training camp either. And so I think he'll be relegated to their wide receiver 4. Gould, Doolin, DJ Montgomery clearing out the wide receiver room. Tyler Warren is obviously the one that everybody is excited for to actually have a tight end be relevant in the Indianapolis Colts wide or tight end room. They've been rotating like a crew of 4 guys that don't matter whatsoever for feels like I don't even know how long. There was the Eric Ebron days, maybe where we were at. I know there's the other tight end that was always hurt that I can't remember off the top of my head. But it's been a while with the likes of Mo Alley-Cox, Ogletree, Jelani Woods, Will Mallory. Finally, we get a first-round tight end drafted to this team. And because the passing attack is just so weak, I can't put him up any higher. I want to put him up higher than this. But if I do, I'm cutting in somewhere else even further to this wide receiver room. Maybe some of this Idinaapolis Mitchell receiver work could probably go to Tyler Warren, and I could probably get him up closer to like a tight end 15 overall, but certainly not where anybody would have him ranked in Dynasty or even redraft rankings at this point, I don't think. 69 nice total receptions for Tyler Warren is where I put the projection at. That's on 80 targets to the tight ends total. Last year, they were at 85. So you could see this number bump up closer, maybe to like, again, maybe that 95 mark is maybe where we could get it up to if we take out of the Idinaapolis Mitchell. I probably will go back and change this a little bit and bump them up, but it won't be much. At a 71.01 reception percentage, 75 is about your standard for tight ends. So you bring them down because you're with Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. 49 total catches at a 10.86 yards per reception gives you 532 total touchdowns and 532 yards and 4 total touchdowns for tight end 20. Not what you want to see, but none of this offense except for Jonathan Taylor is what you want to see. Recapping this Indianapolis Colts team that is, again, one of the grossest teams that I've gone through. 491 total passing attempts for 301 completions, 3,322 yards in the air, 18 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 470 rushes on the ground for 2,214, 18 touchdowns, 961 plays, and 36 total touchdowns. Hopefully, we don't have any more of these teams that are like this again. There is one other gross team, but they're gross for a different reason that we'll get to towards the end of the series. But for now, this is it for the Indianapolis Colts. We'll continue with the AFC South on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in.